The immigration discussion is as old as the flag, and color is often a part of it. But in 2019, there's very little black and white in this American debate.
When I say release the, you say parents. Release the parents. Release the parents.
August 14th. Wyatt Detention Center in Central Falls. A correctional officer drives a pickup into a line of protesters who were demonstrating against the agreement Wyatt has to detain immigrants wanted by ICE. Two demonstrators injured by the impact, several others hospitalized after getting doused with pepper spray, 10 arrested, and days later, the correctional officer who was driving resigned.
So you introduce yourself.
By contrast,
Confidence.
the calm of this English as a second language class at Providence's Genesis Center.
My name is Boaz. What's your name?
This map in the hallway pins the 40 countries hundreds of Genesis students came from. Here, immigrants can get a variety of services, including guidance through the citizenship process. Vanya Rodales immigrated from Honduras 16 years ago, escaping what she says was horrible abuse.
Extrema violencia.
It was extreme domestic violence, that's what she said. It was physical and sexual violence.
Rodales is training at Genesis to become a home health aide and still working on her English. But the joy she felt the moment she became a citizen translates pretty well.
Oh, you see my body is heavy, but my feeling is tired, live. And I want to screaming, I want to jump, and I say, thank God, finally.
How often did you worry about being sent back to Honduras?
Too much.
Every day?
Yeah.
To go to college. That's good news.
Marcos Bonilla works at the Genesis Center. He is in the final stage of the naturalization process, but has already joined the National Guard. He tells us he looks forward to active duty once he's a citizen. You're willing to fight for this country?
Yes, I am.
Are you willing to die for this country?
Yes, I am.
2 cities away in Lincoln,
All right, come on, Walt.
the piece of Terry Gorman's garden.
This is the gourds that I'm growing this year.
No more cages.
Gorman has been part of sometimes scrum-like local protests.
Years ago.
As the founder of Rhode Islanders for Immigration Law Enforcement. But he tells us Ryle is now less likely to demonstrate due to confrontations from groups that support, in his words, quote, illegal immigrants.
It's only the last several years that people have felt like this, but there's been instances at the State House where we've been confronted and called names and
What kind of names?
shouted racist and xenophobe and, you know, go back to your tunnel or whatever, you know, crazy stuff like that.
Gorman is skeptical of stats compiled by the Pew Research Center that indicate Rhode Island is one of only 2 states in the country where births to immigrant mothers declined since 1990, although very slightly by 13 births. He also doesn't believe Pew estimates that 30,000 undocumented immigrants live in Rhode Island.
I think it's actually worse. I think it's a lot worse. And when they cite numbers, I think in Rhode Island in particular, the numbers are mostly swept under the rug. If you asked me how many illegal aliens I thought there were in Rhode Island, I would say there's probably 65 or 70,000. But I'd like them to enforce the laws, and as they find them, start off with criminal illegal aliens, round them all up like they tried to do, and then they get stopped by the court system. But the criminal illegal aliens, get them out of here. Go on.
Gorman and his organization Ryle are on the side of the debate that insists immigrants learn to speak English, and the naturalization process does include an English test, with the potential citizen required to read 1 out of 3 sentences correctly and also write 1 out of 3 correctly. In most cases, immigrants cannot apply for naturalization until they've lived legally in the U.S. for at least 5 years, and legally in the U.S. for at least 3 years if they're married. This is the application. It's 20 pages long and has 18 sections in it. Applicants are asked the obvious, as in their address, phone number, parental information, and biological details from race to eye color. Section 12 asks if they were ever involved in genocide, torture, trying to kill someone, One page away, have they ever been a habitual drunkard, a prostitute, sold or smuggled a controlled substance? We're told it takes up to 6 months to process the application, and at that point, the immigrant is given a date for the test. This is the booklet, the study guide provided to applicants. Inside, there are 100 potential questions to study. The seemingly simple, who was the first president of the country? Less simple, perhaps, what territory did the United States buy from France in 1803? That's the Louisiana Territory, as in the Louisiana Purchase, in case you didn't know. There's also one question in here about North America before Europeans arrived. Name one nationally recognized Indian tribe. The Narragansetts are not on the short list in the booklet, but would be a correct answer since the Charlestown tribe is one of the country's 500 federally recognized tribes. As we said, the study guide includes 100 possible questions, but 10 are on the actual test, and a 6 out of 10 is considered a passing grade. According to the feds, since 2009, 90% of the immigrants who took the test passed it.
Well, first of all, one of the things that doesn't get talked about is the fact that people who are pro-illegal immigration never use the term illegal.
So it's a balancing of the positive equities versus the negative equities. And the court has the authority, the discretion, to decide whether or not that immigrant is going to be allowed to stay in the United States.
The bottom line is we don't know who's here. And I think you probably understand that for example, the 19 hijackers that hit the World Trade Center, they had 63 driver's licenses. They were in flight school. They hadn't committed any crime up until they did that, as far as we know.
A lot of these policies don't make sense for the taxpayers, period, right? When we think about, well, we're going to detain every person that appears at the border. That requires money. That requires tax dollars.
The greater cost is the burden of having to pay for these people for healthcare, schools. That's far more expensive. Never mind the victimization, and how do you put a price on the lives of the thousands of people who have been killed by criminal illegal aliens?
I had a meeting with Senator Reid this morning in a community meeting. It wasn't a one-on-one. He told me that they appropriated, I believe he said, $14 billion for border security, for the detention facilities, for them to be able to provide toothpaste and toothbrushes to the kids. Hopefully they're getting that today.
I'm the son of an immigrant. My father came here, became a citizen, and raised 13 children. And my father never walked down the street with his head down, looking over his shoulder, worried about getting a driver's license, because he didn't have to. He knew he did it the right way.
And we don't allow driver's licenses to the undocumented population, right? Even though studies show that it's safer for us to have roads wherein people who have driver's licenses and have taken the test.
Would you send everybody who's illegal back if you could?
Well, I think on the baseline of fairness, that's the right way to do it. The realities of being able to send 11 million people back to their countries and tell them reapply is unrealistic. That's why we've been asking for 20 years for Congress to move on immigration reform.
Well, the courts have always been backlogged with their cases. And under this administration, I really think that they've worsened that and now have put even more pressure on immigration judges to adjudicate their cases within a period of time. And if they do not, that goes to their review.
Two words that can fire up almost everyone involved in this debate: sanctuary city. Target 12 investigator Steph Machado contacted every police department in the viewing area to check on their policies.
It's been more than 2.5 years since Mayor Jorge Elorza first called Providence a sanctuary city.
Providence has always been a sanctuary for immigrants.
He's repeatedly said Providence won't turn undocumented immigrants over to ICE.
I want them to know that they are supported and they are safe here in Providence.
It's a bit more complicated than that. If ICE issues a criminal warrant for the arrest of an undocumented immigrant, Public Safety Commissioner Stephen Perry says Providence police will take action.
We will arrest and we will turn you over to ICE. What we will not do is if there's a detainer on you, which is a civil hold.
Our survey of local police departments found Providence is rare in having a written policy barring officers from arresting or holding a suspect on what are called administrative detainers from ICE, asking police to hold someone for up to 48 hours so ICE can come get them and potentially deport them.
We're not ICE agents. We need our community to trust our Providence police.
In Bristol County, Massachusetts, the sheriff, Thomas Hodgson, has a very different philosophy, building his own local immigration detention center that houses on average 180 detainees at a time. ICE pays the sheriff's office $98 per detainee per day. Last year, that added up to nearly $8 million.
And we signed a memorandum of agreement, I did, with the president.
Hodgson's office is part of the controversial 287G program, which allows local law enforcement officers to perform functions of a federal ICE agent. 6 Bristol County officers were trained by the feds for the program, and the sheriff's office built the C. Carlos Carrero Immigration Detention Center in 2006 with the money they received from ICE.
Like an American citizen who violates the law, if you haven't been caught yet, you're probably going to be nervous and you're probably going to be afraid, and you should be. And you should be.
Participating in this program is a terrorization tactic.
Areli Diaz from the local immigrant rights group Amor is against the 287G program and tells us local police should not cooperate with ICE.
You don't build trust by collaborating with an agency that's actively tearing families apart.
Our survey found other police departments in Rhode Island vary in how they handle detainers. Most say they'll cooperate with ICE in whatever way needed. Smithfield's police chief says they'll tell ICE exactly where and when they can find a person with a detainer, down to the courtroom number. No Rhode Island police departments are in the 287G program, but Rhode Island State Police once was, back in 2008, during the administration of Governor Don Carcieri. But when Lincoln Chafee took over in 2011, he shut down the program, and 3 years later issued a new policy on how the state cooperates with ICE. That 2014 policy is still in effect today, allowing state agencies to detain undocumented immigrants with civil detainers, but only if there's a signed judicial order of deportation. Are you comfortable with the fact that state police helps with civil detainers?
The role of the state police is not to investigate or enforce federal civil deportation proceedings. We comply with those orders.
Rhode Island State Police Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Barry says troopers cannot ask about anyone's immigration status, nor will they arrest a driver they pull over just because of their immigration detainer. But once someone is in state police custody, the agency will honor certain civil immigration detainers.
I think people have a misconception that this happens every single day. It doesn't. I think they're pretty far and few between.
Few departments go as far as Providence in declaring they won't help with any civil detainers. And the Trump administration has already tried, so far unsuccessfully, to cut federal funding to the Providence Police Department. In 2017, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced, from now on, the department will only provide burn-jag grants to cities and states that comply with federal law, allow federal immigration access to detention facilities, and provide 48 hours notice before they release an illegal alien wanted by federal authorities. Providence doesn't do that, so the Department of Justice tried to cut more than $200,000 worth of burn-jag grants to Providence Police and Central Falls Police. The two cities sued, and in June of this year, a judge issued a permanent injunction, which means the feds can't withhold the money just because of Providence and Central Falls immigration policies.
There's been those kinds of threats. We hear them, but we are focused on continuing with a good relationship with our community.
One common theme we heard from almost everyone we talked to: concern and even fear about the future of immigration in southern New England and beyond. The reality of what can happen in the federal facilities currently housing children separated from their parents hit hard for a local family in 2017. Roger Williams University Law Clinic Director Deborah Gonzalez is their attorney.
The mother was deported. The child was sexually assaulted in this administration's care. She's 7. She's sexually assaulted by one of the other kids there because in that facility they were housing kids from the ages of 5 and 6, and some even younger, to 16, 17.
From another side of the debate, Sheriff Thomas Hodgson, who's met with President Trump on immigration issues multiple times, focuses on criminal concerns he says are tied to unprotected borders.
more drugs pouring in, more sex trafficking, human trafficking, and on and on and on. And I can't stand down for the people I promised to protect.
Sure.
Marcos Bonilla, now waiting to take the naturalization test, enlisted with the Army National Guard earlier this year and looks forward to active duty when he becomes a citizen. He's talked with local residents who are not here legally.
But they feel like they haven't break any law, but you're entering illegally, so that's breaking a law, and they don't feel like they're breaking any law.
One of a few points of agreement we found in this debate. Once an immigrant crosses the border without proper documentation, we're told it is often difficult and sometimes impossible to get the necessary paperwork from the respective countries to potentially legalize their stay. Hodgson tells us he has compassion for undocumented immigrants who are working, paying taxes, raising their children who were born here. It sounds like you're saying the folks who are here and following the law, there might be room to keep them here.
Well, there may be, and that's something Congress has to look at. Again, out of fairness, we have to look at whether or not we're going to marginalize the laws. We're retroactively looking back now. What we have to make clear is going forward that these kinds of things are not going to happen.
Bonilla tells us he understands the points made by both sides, but believes one key in the future is better informing the immigrants and the respective countries about the process to come here legally.
Building a wall specifically, it might be an idea, but I don't think it can solve it. We think we should educate people and show them the right ways. There's a right way to enter this country.
We have a number of other elements to take a look at on this page. Years of census data that tracks trends across southern New England, also an interactive map that'll show you the makeup of your community, and a sample citizenship test. Thanks for watching this 12 on 12 digital original.